Greetings! Welcome to the Devlog for experimental build 12 of update 120 of hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. We're going to start as always with a quick sound check. Make sure your speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful, except for that last shot. So what have we got for this week? Well, I've been continuing to work on our game planner systems and added a bunch of modules that can now allow you to make a very simple game of your own. Let's jump in and see what is going on with them. So for those of you who haven't been following along, Game Planner is a set of tools and widgets that allow you to hook together various objects. You manipulate them using the toolbox, which can be found in the wrist menu, and the two pieces of the toolbox that we need the most for this are the pointer tool and the object info panel. Object info panel is used for changing some settings on some things, and this is used for wiring them up. So in its simplest case, we just have like a button here, and we've got a little what's called a bleeper, allows us to just make a sound with it. But we can do a whole bunch of other things. As I think I showed you last time or the time before, we can have, say, switches that allow us to, say, control a target, which is a whole bunch of what we're going to do today. So on is up, off is down, like so. But obviously everything I've showed you thus far has been I hit a button, I hit a switch, I shoot a thing, and then something happens. There's nothing really automated. And if we wanted to make ourselves a game, we would actually need some sort of underlying automated logic. So we're going to do that now. We're going to, let me grab you. Let's just use tractor here to move these here, space them a bit more nicely. This is dangerous doing this next to exploding barrels, but I like to live dangerously. Cool. So let's take a look at three new modules that we have this week. We have a clock, a randomizer, and something called indexer 4, which is not, there we go. It's not allowing me to select it. So when you are doing anything automated, like say I want to set this up so that I have these 5 targets here and I can shoot them repeatedly and random ones present themselves to me to shoot, we need a tick. We need a repeating event that is taking place. So I'm going to actually put a suppressor on this so it's a little quieter. So if we just take this clock here, which spawns turned on, and we say grab a light here and hook this up like that, we can see that the light is turning on and off. This clock is basically going ding, donk, repeatedly. And we can use the object panel to change the frequency that it is doing that. So if we set this frequency down a bunch lower, light goes faster. Set this down even lower, it goes real fast. And so this could be used for the light, or this could be used for the state of one of our targets if it wants to connect. There we go. Boop, 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 boop. So now our target turns on and off like that. Let's see if we can time turning this off correctly. There we go. Beautiful. Well, that's all well and good if we wanted to shoot at one target, but what if we want to shoot at a bunch of them? Well, we need to do a couple things. One, we need to hook a bunch of these up to what's called an indexer. And an indexer is really straightforward. It has a single input, and it can take any number, and then it has a bunch of outputs. And what we want to do with this is we want to have our clock drive a randomizer to give us a random number between 0, 1, 2, 3, like that, and then have that number set those targets up and down to use. So we can just grab this clock here, put it into our randomizer. We need to point our panel and decide how we want to randomize this. This defaults to bool, so like coin flip. We can set it to integer, set it to 0 to 3, and so now that's giving us a number repeatedly each time the clock ticks. I definitely recommend, if you're trying to understand what these are doing, you can always just use this signals monitor. And so we can just click this up here. And as you can see, it's going 3, 3, 2, 0, 3, etc. So that's giving us a random number. And so now what we can do is grab this, connect this to 4 of our, oops, we need to get a little closer. We can just bring this over here and just go 1 for you, and 1 for you, and 1 for you, and 1 for you. And then we can just connect the randomizer to this. Boop. And so what this is doing by default is it's basically, so when a number comes in, if that number equals one of these outputs, 0, 1, 2, 3, it's sending true to one of those and sending false to the rest of them. So it's making the rest of them go down at that interval. Nope. Decent. we might be going a little too fast, so let's increase our clock speed a little bit to something closer to a second. Now we might want something different. Instead of, we might want to make it so that we don't want it to set things to false. Conveniently, we can change a behavior about the indexer here, which is this can be set to update all or update single. And so in this case, what it's now doing is that it's only resetting them back to true. Yeah, man, I just cannot hit. There we go. Turns out when you put a suppressor on that completely blocks your iron sights, not so good for target shooting. So yeah, so obviously this is just the beginning of this. You can stack these with the logic gates that I've showed you before and the the delayers. But in a big way, I just wanted to get the first couple items that allow for sequential actions in. And so we can obviously use these for doing things like targets. And obviously you can do, I think I had showed something like this back in the very first demo of this. Right now, this does not actually copy the properties of these. That will eventually be added. There we go. Pull those back out. So we could do a similar thing that we've done in the past, which is, I added some new dials. There was a dial that goes from 0 to 9. We have a dial that goes from 0 to 25. And one that's 0 to 32. You might be like, why 0 to 24? That seems weird. And that actually has to do with the way that the signals bleeper is set up. Because it has, I believe it's like 2 octaves of pitch range. And so, yeah, so we can, once again, start with a clock. We'll just start at 1 second so that this isn't too intense. Connect it to a randomizer. I guess we'll just go our maximum note range, which goes from 0 to 24, like that. We will, if we look, remember, if you have an object, you can see what's on it. So let's see, we can set our volume, play the current note, play a note, set the instrument, and then set the note. So if we grab this one, we can set this to be our instrument. We can use this one as a volume panel so that this is not super loud when it starts. And so yeah, so let's first just connect this up as to the clock. So we just have a note playing. Like so. We could use this to use this for setting our note. Like that. Or we could hook up the signals randomizer here. This is still set to bool. I'm a dummy. Int. There we go. To play a note. etc. So eventually we'll actually, like, if you actually wanted to make something more approximating music, we would want a couple more devices here to make it easier to cut like our eighth notes and into quarter notes and half notes and things like that to actually sequence up. But there's certainly enough here to just start playing around and making a bunch of nonsense. Let's see how fast. Computer music. So yeah. Whew. So hopefully this, for those of you who are playing around and seeing how these tools work and finding all of our bugs, this gives you a couple fun new modules to utilize. Saving and loading is still not active, and that's partially because we're still working on it, and it's partially we're still changing some fundamental aspects of the way that signals devices are defined, and I don't want people just going and making like a huge complex thing for a week, and then us having to be like, sorry, we have to delete all your work. We need to change something. So our plan is to have saving in soon, but until then, those of you who are playing with this will help us continue to find bugs. And what I plan to do with each week that we update a build is add some more sort of functional elements that bring us towards being able to make some gameplay. I've got a bunch of core things planned, things that spawn SOSIGs, things that spawn weapons, things that detect items, a bunch of sensors. I've been continuing to take all of your sort of like notes and desires on this. But yeah, so give this all a shot, those of you who enjoy playing with these sorts of widgets, and let me know what you think. And definitely if you come up with like a dynamic target sequence thing using this in some capacity with delayers or with indexers, I would love to see video of it in our Discord. So yeah. Anywho, let's jump out of VR and do an arm swinger jump and talk about what else is in this update. Yo! So, out of VR, what else is going on in this update? So this was, once again, another big bug fix update. Couple things that were sort of omissions. One user submitted that there were a bunch of guns that were actually missing their bayonet mounts. I think it was like the 416, one of the 416s, 416N and M27 IAR. Those have now been added. Additionally, there were a bunch of guns that had a bayonet lug and didn't have bayonet compatibility, like the AR-18, 180, and the Stoner 63 rifle. Those now have bayonet mounts. As you saw in this, I have now added the signals device functionality to all the standing steel targets that flip up and down, changed a little bit how they function. Like when you set them to go down now, it actually forcibly disables the spring behavior on them, which is what you would expect. And then outside of that, just like a whole, I tried to just catch up on the bug fix queue of folks. Broken Uzi magazines, P38 ejection directions, some things were named wrong. I'd completely screwed up implementing the VZ58 fire selectors a million years ago. Added some exotic behavior, like the Webley 1913 apparently locks open when there's not a magazine in it. So that functionality has been added thanks to the user who reported that. Tweaked a few taken hold, sort of like scoring behavior bugs between the modes. Yeah, just a couple other miscellaneous things. Also, very importantly, there were a couple like logic bugs that allowed for infinite loops to form in the, like, if you used if you hit, like, had a button that was being hit by a remote gun firing at it that also fired the remote gun, that could sort of be an infinite loop, or I think it was a steel target. And so that has now been fixed in that a whole bunch of things that can output signals when a thing happens can now only do that once per frame. So like a remote gun can only fire once per frame. A thing flinger can only fling an object once per frame, and that should prevent those infinite loops from forming. So if they don't and you still hang or crash when that happens, I would love a repro case, obviously, and we can just see what's going on. Because apparently when an infinite loop happens and locks the app up, it happens so fast that we don't even get like a useful printout into the logs. So we have to sort of debug that indirectly. So yeah, as I said, I'm just going to be, we're working on a whole bunch of other stuff on the back end for the game, prepping its eventual 1.0 release, trying to build, these game planner tools into the more robust system that, I've always wanted them to be. being able to sort of build and configure a sort of dynamic target range. Once all those tools are done, I'll end up including a whole bunch of presets and defaults in the game for you folks to play. If you're like, it's neat that there's tools for making that stuff, I mainly just want to shoot stuff. The whole idea is that I could build a bunch of stuff, or like, we might even do like a contest or something like that. And the sort of best course layouts that are run through Game Planner that folks end up authoring, we could include in the game. I think there's a bunch of cool possibilities to do there, all based upon how much you folks enjoy playing with these systems. So anywho, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and I'll see y'all soon. Peace.